What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to this week's installment on The Lake Show, and I really appreciate you all making me a part of your day again. So last week, I recapped a little bit about the NBA playoffs and some college football news that's currently happening. I mainly talked about the Michigan Wolverines head coach, Sharon Moore, and how he will be suspended for 2 games in this upcoming 2025 season for college football, and also possible landing spots about Giannis Antetokounmpo and whether or not he will in fact be leaving the Milwaukee Bucks in this upcoming NBA offseason. But, I feel like that's going to be a very fascinating move wherever he goes, including possibly staying with Milwaukee. But more than likely, I'm willing to bet that he's gone. I'm willing to bet that Giannis has had, he brought Milwaukee a championship, their first one since 1971 or something like that. So back in 2021. So, Giannis doesn't owe Milwaukee anything. If he wants to chase rings from now on throughout the rest of his career, then, Milwaukee is not the place to do it, unfortunately, because I do have a soft spot for Milwaukee and Damian Lillard, but unfortunately, because of a ruptured Achilles, that trade did not work out too well. And as you all know, I'm a Bucked Up ambassador, so use promo code SHOW32, get yourself 20% off any and all pre-workout orders at buckedup.com. And as you all know, I once again will always give all glory, all praise to the one true God, Jesus Christ, the one who is always there for me and allows me just to do so much on a day-to-day basis and just allows me to really, truly enjoy the life that he has given me in this world. And he's the one person I can go to whenever life hits and whenever I'm struggling with anything. Man, I really hope everybody puts their faith in him and can really experience the joy and love of God. I always start off the show with that, and I'm going to continue to do so. I personally don't care how people think of that, but, I think he never lets me down. Whenever I am down in the dumps, and I have been from time to time over these past couple weeks, but because of certain things going on, but if there's one who does not let me down, it is the one true God, Jesus Christ. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, we got quite a bit to talk about, and we're going to start in the NFL. We're going to talk about a little NFL, college football, and NBA action today on today's episode. So right now, we're going to start with probably the most newsworthy topic that's out there right now, and it's about the San Francisco 49ers quarterback, Brock Purdy. As we all know, Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant a couple years back after being drafted the very last in the NFL to the San Francisco 49ers, and obviously on Brock Purdy's rookie contract that he was currently on for the past couple years. It paid him on average $853,000 per season. Well, everybody was wondering, would San Francisco re-sign him? Would San Francisco make him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league? Well, that is exactly what the San Francisco 49ers have done. They just signed Brock Purdy to a 5-year extension worth $265 million, includes $181 million of that guaranteed. That'll run through the 2030 season, and that averages out around $53 million a year. Now, obviously, I'm pretty sure that includes some incentives and everything, but realistically, now let's actually discuss this. Excuse me. Let's actually discuss this. Do I feel Brock Purdy has earned every penny of that? I do not think so. Do I think Brock Purdy is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? No. Do I think he's worth $53 million a year? Do I think he's worth that kind of money? No. I feel like Brock Purdy, and I've talked about this a long, long time about Brock Purdy, how I am not the biggest fan of him. I don't think he's a bad quarterback, but I do not think he's $53 million a year worthy. I don't think Dak Prescott makes $60 million a year. There's nobody in their right mind that realistically thinks Dak Prescott is a $60 million a year quarterback. One quarterback who has only 2 playoff wins to his name in nearly a decade being in the career. That's all Dak Prescott has. And yet, he is the highest paid quarterback in the NFL. Right now, I'm pulling this up. This is a list of the top 10, highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL right now. So at number 1, you have Dak Prescott making roughly $60 million a year. Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and Jordan Love follow behind Dak Prescott, making $55 million a year on average. Then you got Tua Tagovailoa, $53.1 million. Then you got Brock Purdy and Jared Goff, who are both making $53 million a year, followed by Justin Herbert at $52.5 million a year, and then Lamar Jackson at $52 million a year. I have a problem with half of this list. I have a problem with 5 quarterbacks on this list. One, clearly, is Dak Prescott. $60 million a year is just asinine for a quarterback who has never even reached the conference championship. I'm more than... When you put Brock Purdy up against other quarterbacks, such as Tua, such as Jordan Love, or Trevor Lawrence, or Dak Prescott, there can be a legit argument to paying Brock Purdy $53 million a year over the other guys who are making more than him, like Tua, like Love, like Lawrence, and like Prescott. Those 4 don't have anything to show for whatsoever in their career so far. Trevor Lawrence was hyped up to be the next Andrew Luck. That hasn't panned out. He only has 1 career playoff win up to this point. Dak Prescott sure hasn't proven that he deserves $60 million a year with only 2 playoff wins in damn near a decade. You got Jordan Love, who still, he may be able to get up to that kind of potential, but again, the way he played the back half of last year, he's not even remotely close to being worthy of $55 million a year. And then you got Tua, who hasn't done anything of note in the NFL and who can't play in cold weather. That's just a legitimate argument. There's more argument to pay Brock Purdy this amount per year than there is other quarterbacks. With Tua, you get, the arm angles, with Trevor Lawrence, you get realistically, I don't even know what you get with Trevor Lawrence right now because he's not even remotely close to what everybody expected him to be. Now, going back to Brock Purdy, there's more of an argument to make for Brock Purdy. He's been to 2 NFC championship games, and he's been to a Super Bowl. I'd be more than willing to pay Brock Purdy this if you gave me the choice of Brock Purdy, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Jordan Love, and Dak Prescott. I'd pay Brock Purdy for, ahead of those other guys because Brock Purdy actually has pedigree and actually has some accomplishments in the NFL right now. But going back to Brock Purdy, is he a product of his circumstances or is he a product of, himself being a great quarterback? I think he benefits greatly from the Kyle Shanahan system. Kyle Shanahan makes every quarterback work except Trey Lance, but we all know that was a draft bust beyond epic proportion. Do I feel Brock Purdy's worth $53 million a year? No, because if he was worth $53 million a year, he would have took that injury-riddled roster, to the playoffs at least for San Francisco. Excuse me, guys. Sorry, I'm dealing with a little bit of a cough today, but, we'll power through it. But Brock Purdy, in my opinion, he's good. I'd be more comfortable paying him around the $45 million a year kind of guy, $40 million a year kind of quarterback, than one of the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL currently. Here's where I take it back to quarterbacks who legit would have been worth every single penny of this kind of contract. I think of guys like Andrew Luck, who unfortunately had to retire early because of injuries. Andrew Luck literally took one of the worst offensive lines in NFL history. No offensive weapons that are really of note other than T.Y. Hilton at that point, but he wasn't nearly as good as Calvin Johnson or Andre Johnson or those guys. He led them to 2 straight AFC championships behind a terrible offensive line and a terrible team in general. Andrew Luck was not on that team. The Colts don't even sniff the playoffs. That's the kind of quarterback you want. He can make anything work. That's why Tom Brady's also the GOAT, in my opinion. He made everything that the Patriots put on his roster, on his offense, he made everybody work. Unfortunately, it came to a bad end towards the back half of that career, but, Brock Purdy making $53 million a year, I don't see it, just because I think he's more of a product of the players that were surrounding him. A prime Deebo Samuel, prime George Kittle, a fantastic offensive line, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk. Brock Purdy was surrounded by immaculate talent. That was in their prime. Now, Deebo Samuel's gone. Christian McCaffrey, up in age and more injury prone. George Kittle, up in age and he's still injury prone. Offensive line, not as great as what it was. Brandon Ayuk, I think Brandon Ayuk is still there. Yeah, Brandon Ayuk is still there, but he has an injury history too. Deebo Samuel's gone, as I mentioned. So we're really going to find out whether or not Brock Purdy is worth this kind of money this upcoming year. If he can't deliver at least a playoff berth, then I think you're starting to get into the conversation of, was he overpaid? Now, here's the part where I'll defend San Francisco in. Who else are you going to pay? Who else is out there that's worth it to at least try and make a playoff push and possible Super Bowl run? I don't think there's any other quarterback that is worthy to pursue. I'm not the biggest fan of guys like Sam Darnold. I think he was a product of Kevin O'Connell. But going forward, if you're San Francisco, who are you going to pay in general? So I see both arguments to it. I think San Francisco, they made the right choice by paying him, because if you didn't pay him, there's nobody else to get. I heavily disagree with the number that they gave him at $53 million a year. I don't think anybody would dispute that either. I don't think it's crazy to say that Brock Purdy is not worth $53 million a year. We're going to find out truthfully if he's worth it this year. The offense is different. Again, I mentioned Christian McCaffrey, older and injury prone. George Kittle, older and injury prone. Offensive line, getting up there in age and not as dominant as it once was. You have Brandon Ayuk, but you do not have Deebo Samuel anymore. He's down. He's in Washington now. So we're really going to find out what Brock Purdy's all about. I think this upcoming year, it's a big time tell whether or not Brock Purdy is worth any of this contract. And by the way, I'm pretty sure there's a no trade clause in his contract, so if he stinks it up, good luck trying to get rid of him. Okay, now I'm going to do a little game here. I made a video like this a while ago, probably a year ago. I talked about, would I take Brock Purdy or the field? Would I take Brock Purdy or this starting quarterback in the NFL? I always said that Brock Purdy, I don't care that he made 2 AFC championships. I don't care that he made a Super Bowl. Listen, he is a middle-of-the-pack quarterback. I'm going to give you all the quarterbacks that I personally would take over Brock Purdy. So we're going to start in the AFC. Lamar Jackson or Brock Purdy? Lamar Jackson. Josh Allen or Brock Purdy? Josh Allen. Joe Burrow or Brock Purdy? Joe Burrow. Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, or Deshaun Watson. Any of the Cleveland quarterbacks, I'd probably take Brock Purdy. Denver Broncos, Bo Nix or Brock Purdy? I would personally take Bo Nix. CJ Stroud or Purdy? I'd take CJ Stroud. Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones or Brock Purdy? I'm taking Brock Purdy by a country mile. I think Anthony Richardson stinks. I think he's awful. And the same thing with Daniel Jones. Trevor Lawrence or Brock Purdy? Personally, I'd take Brock Purdy over Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, he had the chance to at least make himself known as like an Andrew Luck caliber player when, your team's falling apart around you, when you're not that talented on one side of the football. Can you lead your team to promised land? He, in fact, cannot. And I would personally take Brock Purdy over him. Patrick Mahomes, that's a no-brainer. Geno Smith or Brock Purdy? I'd take Brock Purdy. Justin Herbert, easily over Brock Purdy. Tua or Brock Purdy? This is a little bit of a tough one for me. If you take injuries out of it, I would take Tua, but overall, I would personally take Brock Purdy. Drake May or Brock Purdy? I think Drake May has a lot of upside, but currently you have to go with Brock Purdy. Justin Fields or Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy, not even close. Mason Rudolph or Brock Purdy? I'd take Brock Purdy any day of the week. Cam Ward or Brock Purdy? Even despite not seeing a snap yet, I would still probably take Cam Ward because of the talent disparity between him and Purdy. I think it's clear as day Cam Ward is way more talented than Brock Purdy. You know, those other guys, they have more talent, but again, I'm basing this kind of selection off of, potential. Justin Fields, we've seen what he is. Mason Rudolph, we know what he is. Geno Smith, we know who they are. Like, we know what these guys are. They're not good. They have talent, but they're not that good of a quarterback. Cam Ward, we'll have to wait to see, but, I'm willing to bet that Cam Ward, I would take Cam Ward over Brock Purdy. He doesn't have an injury history yet. Knock on wood that he doesn't, but just in general, Cam Ward doesn't have an injury history, and, he's younger, he's healthier, and he just has more talent in general. So I'd take Brock Purdy. I'd take Cam Ward over Brock Purdy. So that's 8 quarterbacks out of the AFC. Now let's go over to the NFC. Michael Penix or Brock Purdy? I will take Michael Penix. The Arizona Cardinals with Kyler Murray or Brock Purdy? I would take Kyler Murray. So I'm at 10 quarterbacks. Carolina Panthers with Bryce Young or Brock Purdy? I would take Brock Purdy. Caleb Williams or Brock Purdy? I saw the potential there with Caleb Williams. I think Caleb Williams is a far better quarterback than Brock Purdy. And unfortunately, Chicago just does quarterback wrong. They've always been tone deaf to that sort of stuff. So would you take an up-and-coming star, Caleb Williams, over a veteran like Brock Purdy? I personally would. So I would take Caleb Williams. Dak Prescott or Brock Purdy? Not close in my opinion. I would take Brock over Dak Prescott. I would take Jared Goff over Purdy. I would take Brock over Jordan Love. Matthew Stafford in a heartbeat over Brock Purdy. JJ, I would take Brock Purdy over JJ McCarthy. Tyler Shuck for New Orleans, I would take Brock over him. Russell Wilson over Brock, I would take Brock right now. Jalen Hurts, without any doubt, I would take him over Brock. Sam Darnold, I would not. Baker Mayfield, I would. And Jaden Daniels, I would. So I have 17 quarterbacks around. Yeah. I'm going to double check. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I have 16 quarterbacks ahead of Brock Purdy right now. And I think that's a fair argument. I think when you look at talent and basically what he's had to work with, which is damn near perfection when it comes to the 49ers, I would take 16 quarterbacks ahead of Brock Purdy. Now, that makes him middle of the pack. That doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback. It doesn't mean he's fantastic. I just think there are 16 quarterbacks I would rather take than Brock Purdy right now. So I did that little game. I can't wait to see how many people get angry at me for that one. All right, we're going to move on into the NBA. We're going to talk just a little bit I'm going to talk a little bit about my finals prediction. So right now, the final four we got the Oklahoma City Thunder, we got the Minnesota Timberwolves, we got the Indiana Pacers, and we got the New York Knicks. This is a tough one for me, but honestly, just the way they are playing right now, I don't see anybody beating the Thunder right now. When you look at Game 7, when the Thunder and Nuggets, the Nuggets coming off a Game 6 win, they're ready to, make a push for the NBA Finals again. Well, the Thunder shut that down immediately, winning 125-93. Dang near by 30 points in Game 7. A 30-point Game 7 blowout. I like the way the Thunder are playing right now. I think the Timberwolves can match up well with the Thunder. Can Ant Edwards overcome Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? We're going to find out real soon. And then you got the Knicks against the Pacers. I'll tell you what, I think it's the Knicks and the Thunder who will be representing the NBA Finals this year. I think you got the New York Knicks who are playing fantastic basketball, fantastic team basketball. But if there's one team, the East is, I think whoever is in the East, they have a great shot to win the NBA Finals. The Pacers play well as a team. They really are. Tyrese Halliburton is, probably one of the more underrated players that we don't talk about much enough in the NBA. But then you look at the New York Knicks. They haven't made the conference finals in the East in, what's it been, like 25 years, something like that. If you look at the way Jalen Brunson is playing phenomenal basketball, and just the fact of how well he just gets everybody involved on the team. If Jalen Brunson wins the finals with the New York Knicks and wins the finals MVP, he'll probably be a top 3, top 2, New York Knicks player of all time. But as far as the NBA itself, as far as the finals, I don't know if the Timberwolves can keep up with the Thunder. I'd have the Thunder winning. I'll have the Thunder winning in 6. And then I think Pacers and Knicks, I think that's going to 7 games. I think that's going to be a hard-fought, Eastern Conference Finals. The Knicks are favored. The Knicks are favored in game 1, by 4.5. But right now, I think I'm going with the Knicks. So I think my finals is going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder against the New York Knicks. And the Knicks, whoever wins this series, it's just going to be a hard-fought series. I think it's going to be a 7-game series between the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers. All right, we're going to talk about one last thing. I'm going to be talking about my favorite college football team. Since college football is, spring's over, summer ball is coming up. There's a lot of post-transfer portal, just everything. Post-transfer portal, spring games are wrapping up. Spring games are pretty much done. Now it's just looking forward to the season ahead. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about my favorite team, of course, naturally. So when you look at the Miami Hurricanes and their current roster as it's constructed, there's no reason for me to believe that the Miami Hurricanes can't duplicate or do better than what they did last year at 10-2. With what Mario Cristobal has done in this offseason, I think it's clear what he wants to do. It's all about win now. He's got the personnel to do it. Just the schedule, everybody banged on Miami last year because of a quote-unquote soft schedule. Well, this year, there's really no excuse for that. I'm going to rattle off the Hurricanes schedule. So this is week 1. They play the national champion runner-ups, Notre Dame, followed by Bethune-Cookman, South Florida, hosting the Florida Gators, at Florida State, Louisville, Stanford, at SMU, Syracuse, NC State, at Virginia Tech, at Pittsburgh. Now, the schedule's a lot more brutal than what it was last year, dealing with a bunch of cupcakes early on in the season. But when you look at this entire, what's a realistic expectation for the 2025 Miami Hurricanes? Realistically, this team should go probably 11-1, 10-2 again, and make the ACC title game. I think there's a lot at stake here, especially when it comes to Miami as a program and when it comes to Mario Cristobal, the head coach. Looking at this schedule, I think Notre Dame is very winnable. Florida is very winnable. Every single one of these games is absolutely very winnable. Miami doesn't play Georgia Tech again, which thankfully, because if there's one team that Miami has always struggled with, it is Georgia Tech. We do play Syracuse. That's a must-win game, especially because Syracuse kept you out of the ACC title game last year, and they kept you out of the college football playoff by beating you, by blowing a 21-point lead, I might add. Now, back to what I'm trying to get at. What's a realistic expectation for Miami? I think realistically, it can range from anywhere between 10-2 and undefeated regular season. That's how talented I think Miami is. You lose a lot of product. You lose a lot of production on the offense. Obviously, number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward. You got your top 4, receiving options, Xavier Restrepo now in the NFL, Jacoby George, Sam Brown, and Elijah Arroyo. Your top 4 pass catchers are gone to the NFL. Your top rusher, Damian Martinez, who is now in the NFL also. You still got one of the best offensive lines in all of college football. But if there's one thing I'm not worried about, it's Miami's ability to, acquire talent. So some of the more notable names that the Hurricanes have gathered over this past, offseason, I think about guys like cornerback Charles Brantley, who's a defensive back from Michigan State. You got CJ Daniels, wide receiver from LSU. You got Ethan O'Connor, cornerback from Washington State. You got Muhammad Tor, a linebacker from Rutgers. There's just a lot. You got Chamar Brown, running back from North Dakota State, and Keelan Marion from BYU. There's a lot to like about, and especially Jacoby Thomas, safety from Tennessee. Looking at the outlook of the Hurricanes, there's no better acquisition than on quarterback Carson Beck from Georgia. Now, looking at Carson Beck, I think that's what Miami's season, that's what leans on it. If Carson Beck can deliver or not. The injury is definitely a concern. Carson Beck's off-field issues, whether that be, he's had some off-field distractions. That's what we'll say when it comes to his life in general. But looking at Carson Beck and what he's able to do on the football field when he's locked and low, when he's locked in, when he's not turning the football over, he's one of the best quarterbacks in college football. I think he's going to prove that this year. I think there's a good chance that he can. But in order for the Hurricanes to succeed this year, it literally mainly falls on the shoulders of Carson Beck and his ability to take care of the football, be accurate with his throws, and just be able to lead this entire program. And when you look at the bowl game from last year, Miami against Iowa State, Cam Ward played the first half and then, he opted out. He didn't play the second half. That left open, room for Emory Williams to show what he can do. Emory Williams is he's a good player. But I had a feeling, I knew that Miami was going shopping for a quarterback in the transfer portal. Again, the way Emory Williams played, there was no way you'd be able to march Emory Williams out week 1 against Notre Dame, the national title runner-ups, and actually have a chance to beat them. I unfortunately, I like Emory Williams as a player. I still remember, unfortunately, when he broke his arm against Florida State. He showed a lot of heart in that game. But him as a quarterback, unfortunately, he just does not see the football field well. It seems like he just throws the ball to throw the ball. Miami's season, Miami's chances at the ACC championship, Miami's chances at making the college football playoff, Miami's chances of possibly making a national championship, they all ride on the shoulders of Carson Beck and his ability to take over the offense and take care of the football. That is what the Miami Hurricanes season completely rides on. And realistically, the schedule is very workable. Notre Dame is definitely a beatable team. The 2 games I'm worried about the most are Notre Dame, week 1 of the season, and then Florida, week 4 of the season. Florida is going to be a good team. DJ Lagway, he showed out as a freshman. He had some injuries. He got some bumps and bruises in his first year of college football, but he's looked at as one of the more promising up-and-coming college football quarterbacks. Notre Dame, they're still going to be tough because they still have head coach Marcus Freeman. They still have a ton of talent on that Irish team, and especially that Irish defense. Jeremiah Love, stud running back from last year, he's back. But when you look at this team going forward, Notre Dame is definitely beatable. Riley Leonard is now in the NFL. A lot of defensive talent on that Notre Dame defense is now in the NFL. Al Golden is no longer the defensive coordinator for Notre Dame. He's now with the Cincinnati Bengals. So if and you're starting a completely new quarterback, probably a first-time starter. So looking at this going forward for the Hurricanes, the schedule is very workable. It matters. August 31st against Notre Dame and September 20th against Florida. Those are probably the two most important games for the Hurricanes on this year's schedule. The ACC schedule is very workable and probably in Miami's favor. It's very workable. But one thing that hindered them from last year, being knocked out of the ACC title game hurt a lot. But it's also the fact that they did not play a lot of good quality out-of-conference games. They played Miami of Ohio, I believe. No, they played, who did they play? Either way, Ball State. They played Ball State and Florida A&M. Like, those aren't resume builders to possibly propel you into a college football playoff berth. The fact that they have, they did play the Florida Gators, which was a good schedule, but they were a bad team at the beginning of the year. This is a brand new Florida team. This is completely different from week 1 of the 2024 season. This Florida team led by DJ Lagway is going to be a lot better and a lot different than what they saw at the beginning of last year. Notre Dame, they seem like Goliath, but they're very beatable. These two games are the most important for the Hurricanes in this upcoming season. And again, I think it rides on the shoulders of Carson Beck. How does his arm hold up from injury? He's throwing now. He looks good throwing the football. Can he take care of the football? And can he not be a distraction off the field? I think Carson Beck has all the tools necessary to propel the Hurricanes to their first ACC championship game, a college football playoff berth, and possible national title. And that's going to wrap it up this week on The Lake Show, everyone. Again, I really appreciate you all making me a part of your day. Be sure to like, subscribe, share with your friends, leave some comments down below. I'm your host, Dominic Lako. God bless.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's